I tell you something that amazes me is how they still do these kind of like American style urban renewal projects. So I say American really it goes back at least as far as like Paris when they tore down pretty much the entire city and rebuild it from the ground up to make it harder for people for people to rebel in Paris and just like so that they couldn't barricade the streets as easily. But this is something they built in Utica, New York, which it's kind of funny. First looking at Utica, I'm like on maps because I like to do paintings and like often it's like older American cities just because that's what I like. I like the older architecture. I think it's prettier and there's a side of me that just like I don't care what's in fashion. I don't care what everyone else like. I don't care what the cool thing is now. Like what I want to see is beauty, and I don't care how old that beauty is as long as it's very pretty. Now in America, we haven't built a whole lot in the last, I'd say 70 to 80 years. That's really worth like it's really worth saving. To be honest, there's a few things. There's a few landmarks. But most of the stuff built uh, in the last 70 years or so, just it's junk. It's not built to be beautiful. It's not built to last. But anyway, it's kind of funny. I was looking at this smaller city in upstate New York, and uh, and I thought, man, this is such a nice downtown here. Like you've got a nice intact kind of main street area, and you've got even outside of it you've got a lot of a lot of really nice looking like older buildings. Like granted a lot of these are abandoned, um and could use like renovation. But I like at first I thought, man, this is a really nice city. Like it's kind of cool that you still have a city like this that's kind of relatively intact. But the more you look at it, the more you realize it's not really as intact as it looks. What this is kind of a big peninsula of like historic downtown that's kind of surrounded on all sides by like vacant lots and like underused buildings and basically places that create a big kind of like a big essentially like a big wall around downtown where it's like you're not going to have the kind of flow of people between these buildings and these outer areas that you really want for like a good downtown. Um, so unfortunately, it's just been just hacked to hell, like like a lot of American cities have with in terms of parking lots and things. But like I want to show you specifically what I wanted to do this video on. Um, you've got right here by downtown, they decided they were gonna consolidate three other hospitals into one big hospital that they were gonna tear down a huge part of downtown to build. Now, the first thing you'll notice is this building is horrendously ugly. Like it's very much the kind of 70s, 80s glass box style building, but like even some of the glass box style buildings in the 70s and 80s had some color to them. This one has none, except for the brick down at the base. I don't know why people like, I don't know why this type of architecture is liked so much. If I had to guess, I'd say that it's cheap to construct, but a lot of times they hire well-known architects to build these things, and so they'll cost a pretty penny to build them, even if they don't look like it. But I'll show you what this whole area looked like before then. This was a neighborhood, like an actual neighborhood with a bunch of older historic, like individual buildings that would have been really nice to be renovated and kind of become part of the of a thriving downtown historic core. And I just think it's a huge mistake because historic buildings are a major resource for a city. Like like areas which are historic tend to command higher real estate prices. The quality of construction's better. Um, it, it, they just tend to be a really great resource for a city, and you can build around that to recreate kind of like a walkable, like dense urban neighborhood. And that's kind of all been completely lost in this kind of transformation. Um, it's much easier to renovate and infill an area which has already been kind of built in a natural way according to the way that humans build things, or at least the way that we built things up until fairly recently, than it is to build a whole new area that's going to be dense and walkable and like and listen, I know there's a lot of people who hate the whole urban thing, and listen, I'm not the type of person who wants to live in a major city, like in a downtown area. Um, but I also appreciate the fact that dense urban walkable neighborhoods exist in certain areas. And I don't want to transform our cities into just parking lots and strip malls and things. I'd rather the historic city be intact and there be more these kind of vibrant neighborhoods and stuff. So like even though it's not something for me, I know there's other people who would like love this sort of thing. But let me show you what this looked like before. Um, See, it's not like anything spectacular, but you've got like these historic brick buildings here where like these have a lot of potential to be renovated into something like useful. And you can infill in between them with like row houses and things, and like this would have been a nice area fixed up and turned into like a proper like usable neighborhood. Um, but instead what they did was they just tore the whole thing down. Like you can see even like this was quite a nice building here at this corner. And like this is all gone in the newer street view. Let's see. I know this like on one of these it shows it. Uh, from the air? Yeah, from the air. But you see what I mean, though? This is all just going to be a big parking lot right here, I guess. And you had some nice buildings before. This looks like it's already been renovated, so I don't think this is coming down, thankfully. But you can see what this has created here. Um, like this whole neighborhood is just gone. And this isn't the only case of this. There's another one I'll show you in a minute where they've done the same exact thing as here, where they've just completely demolished a couple blocks of like the downtown fabric. And what this is going to create here is a void. And now this neighborhood is completely disconnected from like the downtown area. There's no reason for somebody to walk in here. The building they've built in its place isn't even an attractive building to look at. So just absolutely no reason to walk here at all. This is just going to be surrounded by parking lots and parking garages. Even the streets have been like this street here has been partially realigned. Um, but yeah, you can see this is just creates a huge void in downtown. And this is a hospital. This is not like something that's going to draw people that makes people want to come downtown. Nobody wants to go to obviously nobody wants to have to be at a hospital. If you're at a hospital, it's because you're injured or you have an injured relative, unless you work there or something. But these hospitals, especially these mega hospitals, these massive ones, are largely self-contained. So you'll have people they come to work here 10, 12 hours, whatever it is. Um, and they're not really going to leave this building. And if they do leave the building, it's going to be in their car to drive to like a fast food place to get like food at. This isn't going to create foot traffic around here. It's not going to bring more people to this downtown core area, which is what you want to get people in, because this is a nice downtown. It's very pretty, even with like the voids and stuff. But But like even you'll see with these buildings, even like this one in let me see if I can find it. This one is the other one I mentioned. Now, see these neighborhood right here, these individual little houses and things. That is what this area looked like before they built this hospital. They actually destroyed several blocks of like neighborhoods here. And you can see what it's been replaced with is mostly parking lots. Like like now parking lots gotta exist. I know it's not something you can get rid of in America just because we're so car dependent, but it's just it's the fact that they completely destroyed a whole like several blocks of neighborhoods to build this stuff is the thing that frustrates me. And I know there was a like this was another one that was billed as the whole idea. It's again this absurd idea that we're going to build this new hospital and it's going to bring a lot of business to downtown. And like after this was built here, the biggest thing that happened was they got this new Wendy's across the street here. Like it wasn't anything like mind blowing. Like and certain things like this hotel here, like this was here long before that before the new hospital was built there. And you've got a bunch of you've got like abandoned buildings across here. You've got see, was this built after the hospital? No, this actually predates the hospital. You actually, let me see something. I think they actually lost business. Now, there's other stuff too, like that I don't get. Like they like this area here, they did not have to demolish all this. Like none of this needed it like a lot of this didn't need to be torn down. Like it like a lot of this could have like this area in here could have been left alone, but they just wanted their patch of grass here. And they like this is another thing. Nobody's going to come here to relax. No, there's not really any purpose to this green space. It's just there to kind of look nice. But, you know, you tear down all the buildings here as well, just for the heck of it. Doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, for as long as this has been open, all they got was a new like Wendy's here. And most of these people are going to be eating at this hospital in the lunchroom, or they're going to drive somewhere else to eat, or they're going to bring their food in. And I tell you, if I have to work at a place like this where like the building isn't even physically near somewhere to make it like walkable, like I would be a little bit more sympathetic to the idea if they'd move this building to like over here to where you've got this street full of buildings that could be restaurants along here to like actually make it walkable. But you can see there was just no attempt to make this walkable in any way. Like and it's it's all self-contained. This neighborhood is not going to prosper because this hospital was dumped here. Like this is kind of a rundown section of the city, and it really hasn't improved at all since the time this hospital was built. Like you can see it still looks pretty shabby. And it's not like I hate the idea that just because an area is run down, like that gives us an excuse to force everybody out and tear down everything. Like that really became a thing in the 50s and 60s. They called it slum clearance, and what it did was destroy a bunch of a bunch of working class and working class areas basically. And especially they always now I'm not like an SJW type or anything like that, but it specifically it displaced a lot of like poor like minority people, like non-white people. So like that's another downside of it. But you can just see the way there's other things with this town that like their downtown kind of sucks. Like oh, my dog's coming down. But I don't even like the idea of consolidating like hospitals and things because the more you consolidate things, the less kind of competition you have between these different hospitals. Now, the one in Utica, like this was three different hospitals that were kind of consolidated into one thing. And so now you've just instead of having the three different hospitals, you just have the one now. And like I said, I think that's bad for business as well. Um, I'm trying to think if that was all I had to say, but let's see. I mentioned this all being self-contained. I mentioned the fact, oh, traffic. I don't know if this is anything like the cities where I live, but where I live, you wouldn't want to build a hospital that was in like my city downtown because the traffic here is so bad during rush hour. I mean, you get into some of these cities in upstate New York and like the Midwest and stuff. They have like the wider roads and they're not quite as dense as like where I live in the Northeast. The cities here are a lot denser and the roads really aren't built really were never built to handle more like car traffic. So the traffic here is pretty bad at the traffic here isn't great at the best of times. But like during rush hour, you would not want to have all your hospital patients have to go downtown here. And in fact, the hospitals that the big one that's near me replaced were two or three, well, two hospitals that were downtown. Um, Now there used to be four hospitals downtown where I live, and it's down to one. But it's a pretty dense city, so having that hospital downtown is a good thing. But like you wouldn't have want to have it set up the way it was here, where all the hospitals were downtown, and you're having to fight rush hour traffic to get your like sick patient to the hospital. And also, it would also make it a real pain for people getting into work too, because you add them to the downtown traffic. Now, I don't know if that's a problem here. It doesn't look like they have as much of a traffic problem as we have, but that's definitely something to take into consideration if you're going to do something like this. Um, Somebody else mentioned too that this site that they're building this hospital on, for as huge as it is, it's not as big as one of the previous hospitals that it's replacing. Um, this one right here is apparently, uh, I want to say this is St. Luke's, is what they said this is, but this is on a larger site than that one, than the one downtown is. So they had an idea on this website. They were saying that they should have, if they were going to close down this hospital and that other one, they should have just built a new hospital on this site. But and like you'd still have like the people who work here if they want to if they move to like be kind of close to their job so their commute wasn't as long, you're also like kind of you're lengthening their drive as well, so there's whole other issues going on with this. um just doesn't seem like the best idea. It really doesn't. Like I don't see the draw of it. Like and like I'm an architecture guy, so my main complaint is just that I find the building horrendously ugly. Now that's not a big deal that like one of them, I don't think it's a big deal that this building's probably going to get torn down because this is not an attractive building either. But but it it's one of the other ones though, I actually think this is a nice looking building and I think it's kind of a shame that this one's going. Like especially because it's relatively unusual architecture with these kind of like parapets up here. Like you don't see that a lot on American architecture. So I think it's a pity that this one's going to get torn down. Um, and as somebody who has anxiety, there's kind of like a presence that a building has where like if you're going into a place that's just massive and noisy and there's a lot going on, it's it's better for if you're autistic. And again, I'm not an SJW. I don't think that you need to build stuff specifically for autistic people or people with anxiety disorders, but like I prefer to go to places that aren't as massive and just overwhelming as like a place like the one that I showed, um the new one, I mean, not this one. um it also helps that it's kind of like a nice looking place. This is another one of the hospital. I don't know if this one's getting torn down or not, because they mentioned that there was going to be services staying in this building, so this building might not get torn down. I don't know. This is another older building, which it's not a super like beautiful to look at type building, but it's got some nice architectural details that I can appreciate that you just, again, you don't see on like newer buildings. Um, and even like the 80s like awning here, I kind of like with the barrel vaults. Um, it's also got a nice kind of like tile roof. I don't know what it is with hospitals, but the really old ones that you saw built at like the turn of this at like in like the 1920s or so, like the 20s and 30s era ones, they really like this kind of like this kind of like Italianate style with the tile roofs. And you see these everywhere, even when there's not like other Italianate style buildings around them. Like it's really interesting. Like of the older hospitals that are near me, like all the ones that I can think of off the top of my head are Italianate design. Like the one in our downtown, which you can't even see the hospital building. It's the original hospital building, actually. It's kind of funny. But if you look at it from satellite, you can see the red tile roof in the midst of like newer hospital buildings that are just completely surrounding it. It's pretty hilarious, to be honest. Um, But yeah, the other thing is I do hate to see these kind of historic buildings, these historic hospital buildings close. Like I really do. I don't know why we've gone back to like if you go back to the 90s, you saw some really crazy architecture in the 90s where people were really experimental and stuff. But like it seems like now people have just completely given up on making anything interesting, and it's just like, we're back to glass boxes like in the 70s and 80s. Like it's not something I'll ever understand. Like I want to if I were to build something, I'd want to build something beautiful and long lasting. Like nobody's going to look at this in in 10, 15 years and say that this is a beautiful building. Like whereas with like a Victorian style place, you see like people fight to keep like certain older buildings from being torn down because they're so pretty. This is a cool one I saw. This is I want to say Utica State Hospital, but look at those pillars, man. That is a building with some presence. That is cool looking. This is the I guess the regional psychiatric hospital. Uh, yeah, that I can't really get a view of it like any closer. But yeah, we have a historic building like this where I live too, but ours isn't this style. Ours is Victorian, and it's like red brick. This is more of a Greek revival, like Roman type thing. But very pretty building, and very unusual. Like just the way that it was built. You see a lot of Greek revival structures in America, but like this one's very, very unusual in like the mass of certain aspects of it. Like these pillars are huge, man. You rarely see pillars that are this big around like this, and like the lintel that's that big. Like they like whoever designed this really had interesting ideas in regards to damn it, what's the word for it? um, I can't think of a word, like the size things are in relation to each other, basically. It's very pretty campus. When they built these old hospitals, the whole idea was that you were out in the countryside and like they'd surround them with trees and things and you like the whole idea was you got a lot of fresh air, which makes a lot of sense, especially during the Industrial Revolution when there was so much pollution around. You know, part of the reason people got sick so often was just because of how filthy everything was. I don't know why they tore that down. That just looks like a maintenance building. I don't really see any reason to tear something like that down. But whatever. I'm not gonna get too picky. Like the fact that the original hospital building is even there, I'm happy about. Like you rarely see that. Like it's a thing with hospitals where it can be kind of challenging to reuse a hospital building and then there's kind of like a what's it called? There's kind of like like people don't want to reuse it because it was a hospital. It was like people don't generally have a positive image of hospitals, like especially mental hospitals. Like people have a very negative perception of them. So people look at like an old mental hospital or whatever, and I don't think people have the imagination to in regards to reusing something like people like, even if a building is clearly very beautiful architecture, people can't see past the dirt and the grime and like layers of paint and stuff. And they just like there's kind of like a thing with people where they just it's like disposable, like, why not just tear it down and build a new one? But it's like they don't consider that building something that is that beautiful is going to be far more expensive than actually like than just doing renovations on what's already there. Like the one in my area, for instance, the hospital building is like solid. It's solid masonry. It's like that's not a wall like you get in like 50s and it's not like 50s and 60s era buildings where it's like you have cinder block like fragile cinder block and then you have like brick over it or you have like a wood or a steel wall with like brick over it. Like that's actually solid masonry and to do that like labor's just so expensive that there's just no way. But yeah, not a very long video, but I'm just gonna end it here. I don't um otherwise I'll just keep going and going. You guys be good. Night.